Let's pray. Dear Father, please bless us all this morning. Guide our thoughts. Help us to open our souls to the message. Embrace each one of us with your love, helping us individually and collectively to get the most we can out of this time, to nourish our souls and to leave here today strengthened by the good news of your gospel. Please help us in the delivery of the message today so that we can attune to our mentors and benefactors, delivering with simplicity and love this message that saves our lives each day. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for another day. Thank you so much for all the blessings, and so be it. All right, so okay, so Andrea was supposed to be speaking today, and she is sick, so we'll be sending her some good thoughts. But she told me yesterday that she couldn't come, and so this morning I woke up and I picked up a few books from my bookshelf and thought to myself, what can I talk about? And you know, which I had like literally 4 books in front of me, and if you know me, you know that I am an avid reader, and absolutely, if I could, I would spend pretty much my entire days reading. So I like to talk about books, and I like to promote books. I think that I cannot think of anything that's, you know, can provide greater nourishment to the soul and to the mind. We live in a society where we are constantly bombarded by thoughts. They're very toxic. They're very disharmonizing, and reading is one of the powerful tools that we have to connect to something that is positive and can uplift us and help us to keep our minds sane in a very insane world that we live in. So I pick up this book, Jesus in the Home, which talks about it's several very, very short lessons, so it's a very easy book to read. And it's a book where we understand why Jesus is truly a master in the most excellence of this word, what master means. Because what he does in this book is it's short stories where he is with his disciples or people who are following him. And people will present to him a certain difficulty, a certain challenge, and he will literally take anything from their daily lives, something that they can relate very deeply to, and will transform in a message. So it's very easy, it's very tangible, it's something that people can understand, and that's one of the things, other than the fact that he absolutely lived every single message that he taught in words, the way in which he taught is pretty fantastic. And so this book is an example of that, and it also reminds us of the importance of doing the gospel at home, coming together as a family and talking about the gospel and talking about uplifting messages that can help us as a family to stay together. Why is the concept of family so important? So let's start just with a quick review of that. So the Spirit Emmanuel in the book Life and Sex, he says that from all the existing institutions on earth, with the exception of humanity itself, no other institution is more important in its educative and regenerative function than the family, right? So when Andrea called me yesterday, I was having a day off with my family, and I told myself the lecture can wait until tomorrow morning because I am not going to compromise my time on the trampoline with my kids. And we were sitting on the trampoline. We just had put a new trampoline together for them, and the 4 of us sat over there, and we were playing, we were looking at the trees, we were enjoying the afternoon, and that's precious. And so I told the spirits, you help me tomorrow morning, because I'm going to stay here on this trampoline. But that to say about the importance of family time together, right? With our kids, these days we are very good in taking them to 300 play dates, where you take them to the play date, they go play with other kids, and you have a beer with the other parents. So play dates, a time where you spend with parents, not with your kids, right? So it's important that we make time to actually be with our kids. And this is something that I am personally working on at this time. So I trusted that I would be able to put this together this morning. Because the family is the most important institution that we have. And we are going to see in the Spirit's book, question 774, social ties are necessary for progress, and family ties are summed up in social ties. Hence, family ties are a natural law. God has thus willed that humans learn to love one another as brothers and sisters. So we come together in family. So to see if united by blood ties, right, together within four walls, we can actually tolerate, forgive, and love one another. So that if we can do this at home, perhaps we can do this as a society, because the family is one cell of the society. The society is made of millions and millions of these little cells called family. So God put us together with a group of spirits with whom we have unfinished business. And he says, now you're united by blood ties. Figure out how you can get along. That's pretty much it, right? And we are a little bit more prone to forgive. Sometimes a brother or sister can hurt us very deeply, but you have the blood tie and you say, it's my brother, it's my sister, and then we make the effort to forgive and to continue to honor and nourish that relationship. Well, this is what really life invites us to do with everyone. But the family, so it will come a day where we'll recognize that much more important than the blood ties are our spiritual ties, and all of us in this room are brothers and sisters. So while we live with our families within the four walls of our homes, we invited to have the same feeling towards the entire humanity. So one of the goals is that we learn to live like brothers and sisters. Today, your brother is your brother. Tomorrow, your brother can be your father. In the next life, can be your cousin. And then in the next life can be, once all the unresolved business have been figured out, then that person comes in the next life as a very good friend of yours, because you have transformed that relationship into what it's meant to be, friendship. Okay, so one more thought about family. The collaborative function of life in family invites us to cooperate with the other in his or her process of evolution. Each one of us operates our own process while cooperating with others. So that difficult brother, that difficult sister, that difficult parent, that difficult child is cooperating for your enlightenment. So we operate, each one of us is called to take responsibility in our personal growth and enlightenment, and our family members who are, we tend to say that they're the difficult ones. I don't know if we ever say we're the difficult one ourselves, right? There's always a difficult one in our families, right? So, but in any case, whether they are we all difficult. I think we can agree with that.
Yes.
We all difficult. So we come together with our limitations, and the idea is that in coming together, we cooperate for each one's enlightenment. Very good. So with this idea of family in mind, we come now to the book. The book is called Jesus in the Home. And before I get to the book, I want to bring to you another book, which we're having here as well, which is called Among Brothers of Other Lands. And in this book, there is a passage that says, "We have given too much emphasis to static Christianity and the belief that appreciates Jesus as an external Savior without admitting Him in the condition of master of the soul, with instructions and disciplines for the inner world. The gospel of Jesus is a system of renewal and improvement of the individual field." And why do I bring that? Because we call the gospel at home, we are spiritists and we are Christians, right? But whether you are a Christian or not, this is a practice that can be done in any religion. And the idea is that in Spiritism, Jesus Christ is not the Savior, the man that comes from heaven to save us externally. So our salvation doesn't come from a man with powers to save us. He is a guide and model. There are tons of other Christs in the universe. He's the one responsible for our planet. What saves us is not the man. What saves us is the message of love, the message of forgiveness, of compassion. So what we are encouraging people to do, whether you're Christian or not, is to have some family time where you come together as a family to talk about feelings, to talk about values. And this coming together, this time becomes a sacred time where family ties get strengthened, where a lot of times kids, if you have kids, they open up. Good spirits will join in, because we're going to look at that at the end. If we have a specific time and we commit to that time, believe me, the spirits who are related to you, to your family, who have passed on, they might join you because they know you'll be together as a family in that time. Other spirits who can take advantage of the moment of prayer and meditation can bring the spirits who are in need of the energy. And so it becomes a little laboratory, a little time where we open that light, that moment to get together, to reflect, and to strengthen these values. So, getting to the book itself, right? This is what I did is I pick up one paragraph for maybe 3 or 4 chapters, just to give you a taste of what the book brings and how it works. So, Jesus in the Home is not a chapter, it's like the preface in the very beginning of the book. And so it says, individuals love the house of worship that guides the way they live, but they do not limit themselves to conventional worship services. Instead, they bring the heavenly friend into the family sanctuary, where Jesus begins to take control of their passions, to correct their behavior, and to inspire their speech, thereby enabling followers to express His eternal teachings by means of living actions, to which the Lord intends to extend the divine kingdom of peace and love over the earth. So what this message here in the very, very beginning of the book is telling us is that it's cool to be here on a Sunday, right? This is our place of worship. We come here to pray. We come here to be with the good spirits. But most important than that is that we take this, right? We take the message, we take Jesus, and we take the good news of the gospel into our homes. And live, try to live as much as possible. So one of the things that we have done with the kids from very early on is to ask them for forgiveness. So a lot of times when parents lose their temper with their kids, they tend to blame the kids. You're impossible, and that's why I'm nervous. You are terrible, and that's why I am screaming. And so it happens. It's impossible not to happen. We all have a moment. But it's important that after that, you come to your child and you say, listen, nothing justifies my behavior. There is nothing that you can do that can actually justify my behavior. So I want to apologize. And you apologize to your children. That's a very powerful way of teaching, because I can say to my children about the importance of apologizing, but if I don't ever apologize to them, and no one in here is a perfect parent, so there are always moments where we can apologize for our children. I apologize for the way that I said, I diminish you. We do that. We put our kids down a lot of times unnecessarily. right? So it's important that we observe those things. They don't have that power, or sometimes we give them the power to affect us, right? So if they are screaming, instead of screaming back, I need to do what? Sit down with them, get to their eye level, right? Let them calm down. A lot of times we're trying to argue with them when they're out of control. That's not the best time. You need to let them calm down and then sit down and have a conversation with them. So those are like little things that, you know, this is not a philosophical proposal. It's a day-to-day proposal. That's how we bring the gospel. So the question is, how are you guys taking the gospel to your homes? How are you living that with your family members? Any family member, doesn't need to be your children. I have to talk about children because that's what I have mostly today in terms of challenge. All right. So in chapter 1, Christian worship in the home. How can one hope for a safe and peaceful community unless the home becomes a better place? World peace begins under the roof that shelters us. If we can learn to live in peace within 4 walls, how can nations expect to coexist in harmony? If we can love the brother or sister next to us and who is involved with us in our daily struggle, how can we revere the eternal Father who seems so far away? So same idea, right? Put into other words. There are people out there who are great, incredible advocates for the peace in the world. But you enter their house and they live in war, right? So the peace that we want to see in the world needs to start in us. But we can only project the peace that we have actually acquired within ourselves. So we need to live in peace with who you are. We have to have peace within in order to express peace. So not to say that there is no credit for all the work that's done for the peace of the world, but it starts within our homes. We blame the politicians for going to war with other countries. But in the meantime, we cannot stand our neighbor. In the meantime, we are living small wars at work. How is that different than what they are doing? It's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So we have to be very careful when we point fingers to others. And as the gospel recommends to us, before you criticize anyone, make sure that you run a scan on your own life, and that very specific trait that you are pointing out to one is not in you, within you. And so if we scan our souls, it's very unlikely, perhaps in different proportions, but it's present in us, many of the limitations that we criticize. So in chapter 2, so these first chapters were just an introduction, and then we start with like little stories. So in this one, it's Peter's wife, the disciple. They're gathered at Peter's home, and she asked him, Lord, what is our life supposed to be after all? We begin the endeavor amongst flowers, only to find ourselves gathering a bunch of thorns later on. At first, there is the promise of peace and understanding. However, stones and troubles soon appear. So she's talking about the family, the coexistence. Does that sound familiar to anyone, or it's just Peter's wife who had this experience? At first, the promises, the dreams, everything is beautiful, right? And then down the road, the thorns start to appear, the difficulty, the obstacles. And so she's very, she has a lot of anguish when she asks Jesus this question. And he says, the home is a school for souls, the temple where divine wisdom gradually enables us to understand humankind more fully. And he asked her, what do you do first with lentils before serving them at mealtime? Mm-hmm. What do you do with the lentils before serving them? You cook them, right? Right? So he takes on what she used to do, right? She cooked with lentils. So he takes that very daily task to draw a lesson in this chapter. So she says, and this is, I kind of simplify the text a little bit. I have to put them on the stove and cook them long enough. Then I have to season them in order to make them taste good. And then he asked about the dough, and she said that he needs to put the dough in the oven. He needs to work on the dough in order to serve the dough. So he will say, in heaven too, there is a festive banquet where our sentiments must serve the Father's glory. Most of the time, the home is a holy cauldron or the preparatory oven. What may seem to us like affliction in the home is actually a resource for the Spirit. So this is it. We are hard lentils. Right? And she's going to go on and she's going to even ask him, what if after you cook the lentils, there is still those hard ones, right? And you don't want to serve them. And he's going to say, well, you're going to separate those and you're going to put those on the trash. You're not going to serve the lentils that had resisted the fire. And then he says later on that that's what death does. So once we die, there's a separation, right? Of the good and the hardened spirits. They're going to be experiencing different levels of happiness, of joy. Which, in fact, even in life, you don't need to discarnate for that. Right here in the present moment, the hardened lentils are experiencing difficulties. More difficulties than the soft ones. The soft ones have gone through the heat, and perhaps that feels difficult. But you are softened by the heat, and the softness brings happiness. The ones that are hardened and resist the heat, these are the ones who are truly suffering, because they cannot see happiness yet. So it's amazing, a very, very simple analogy to teach us a very big lesson. All right, so let's look at another chapter, chapter 3. The notion of the kingdom of God in our lives is truly sublime. This is a woman who was together with Jesus and the disciples, and she puts to him, the notion of the kingdom of God in our lives is truly sublime. But how can I begin to experience it? We have listened to you preaching on the lakeshore, and we know that the good news recommend love and forgiveness above all. And then she gives a very honest testimony here. She says, I would love to be faithful to such principles, but I feel stuck in old rules, in the Moses rules. I can't forgive those who have injured me, and since I can't fathom a life in which we trade our advantage for the sake of others, I'm attached to my things and I'm jealous of everything I own. Okay, so maybe that's not us. Yes, it is. Right?
Of course.
Yes, it is. Because you can say, do you live by Jesus' principles or Moses' principles? We have heard of Jesus' principles. We have heard of Jesus' invitation. But we don't live those principles quite yet. Especially when it comes to love. And if you heard me speaking before, you heard me saying this. We are still learning to love our friends. And we haven't learned that yet. Much less our enemies. Right? And that's what Jesus came to propose. Sometimes we have an extremely difficult time forgiving our friends. Our friends, right? And a lot of times when someone hurts us, we do wish them bad. We may not do it, we may not act on it, but we'll say, well, it will get back to you. Mm-hmm. Well, this is wishing suffering upon someone. It's right around the corner. It will catch up with you. I don't need to do anything, right? Life will take care of you. And that sentiment, it speaks to our desire for revenge. Mm-hmm. Truly. Yeah. Just like the Moses law. Mm-hmm. So in many, many ways, we still dwell in this paradigm of living. Right? So what she's putting out here is just she's expressing very openly what is a very common feeling that we all have. Sarah, what is the fundamental business of your family? So again, he wants to know what is part of her life. What is the fundamental business of your family? Raising goats. How do you keep their milk untainted and pure for home use? And she'll say, Lord, we carefully wash the container that is going to hold it. If there is any dirt in the jar, all the milk will soon go sour and will be useless for the slightest purpose. Okay? So, he will say to her, thus is the heavenly revelation within the human heart. If we do not purify the container of the soul, our understanding, no matter how great it is, gets mixed in with our inner dirt and goes sour, reducing the proportion of assets we would otherwise collect. Beautiful. So the message is pure. The milk is pure. But in order to take advantage of it, the container needs to be clean. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's so simple to understand. You can tell this to a kid and a kid will understand, right? So yes, we have all these. The first question was, how can we install, right, the kingdom of heaven within us? So the good news is a pure message of love. But the only way it will actually manifest and produce happiness and harmony within us is if we do the work of cleansing of our own soul, of getting rid of these resentments, of the rage, of the anger, of the jealousy, and everything else that contaminates the message within us. Now, you don't hear Jesus saying, this is easy, why haven't you done that yet, right? No. That's not it. So this is precisely the journey. This is not something that, oh, I heard this message from Suzana and I'm going to do it. No, you heard the message and you're going to continue with the work. It's a lifetime work, lives work, right? We're going to keep working, but the important thing is that we know why we're doing what we're doing. What is the purpose? Why do we need to do that? How the kingdom is going to actually be installed in our souls. It is through this work. It is through this journey. The commitment. Each day, we'll gather a little bit of water and scrub our souls a little bit to make sure that we are a clean jar, as she says on the chapter. All right, and one more little story, right? So this is chapter 6. It's called Tools of Perfection. An elderly uncle, and this is, again, it's very summarized. There's a bigger description of how Peter had been insulted by several family members, including his uncle, including a cousin. So an elderly uncle had accused Peter of wasting the family assets. He had been offended by his relatives. So Jesus asked him, why did you do, Simon, in response to your inconsiderate relatives' onslaught? And he firmly responded, I reacted like I should have. I put them in their proper place. I didn't hold back in pointing out their bad qualities. My uncle is a rare example of stinginess, and my cousin is a liar. In front of a large crowd, I showed that both were hypocrites, and I'm not sorry for it. Wow. It's interesting to see that because it just shows how much this disciple walk in one lifetime to end up being crucified upside down at the end of his life. So this is him. These are his thoughts, not very different than ours. His behavior, not very different than ours. Very human, right? Very down to earth. And so Jesus will say to him, Peter, how does a carpenter build a house? And again, there's a little bit more of detail in there. It says, with tools. They, family members, are elements for our spiritual growth. And if we fail to take advantage of them, it is nearly always impossible to be victorious by using other means. because the Father has bestowed life's problems on us according to our ability to solve them. The bird has to build a nest, but nothing else is expected of it. The sheep provides wool to the shepherd, but no one expects a ready-made coat from it. People have been granted tasks such as those entailing love and humility as they work intelligently and constantly for the common good, so that peace and happiness may not be only myths. Our closest family members are often the hammer or saw we can use in building the living and sublime temple by which heaven will manifest in our souls. This is so profound, right? Again, the master, the intelligence, the sensitivity of Jesus. So he asked a very simple question. How do you build a house? How do the carpenter does that? Well, you need tools. You need a hammer. You need the saw to cut the wood, right? To work, to build the walls and the structure. So these are what our family members are. And this is what we are to them. Mm-hmm. Always remembering that, right? They are the tools that will allow us to build the living and sublime temple by which heaven will manifest in our souls. I know, I hear you. Easier said than done. But it's possible. It's possible. It reminds me of the little story of Chico Xavier, when I think it was a Catholic priest in his town passes away. And this particular priest was a very, very prominent enemy of Spiritism and had persecuted Chico Xavier in his work and Spiritism and everything else. So he passes away. And shortly after, Emmanuel shows up to Chico and says to him, Chico, let's do a prayer for priest whoever. And Chico's like, but why? And he says, you know, he has been the best tool for our spiritual growth. And so we will pray for him and thank him for all the challenges, for all the difficulties that gave us the possibility to work on patience, on compassion, on forgiveness. And again, if you've been here and if you heard me, I have said that we are very okay in feeling pain a lot of times if we are pursuing our physical and material goals. So you tell yourself, I want to become a PhD. That's wonderful. What that means is you will lose many nights of sleep, you will lose many weekends, you will lose many parties, you lose many beach days for a while. But you know that this is taking you to a better place. And so you do it. You do it. If you want to become fit, I was watching a crazy video on Facebook today, which was those little trampolines with a bar, and people were like jumping like crazy for hours and kicking the legs, and I'm like, this is insane, even for my parameters, and I am someone who likes exercise, but to the extent that people will go to be fit, right? Don't tell me that that's like a good feeling to be jumping like crazy and get your heart rate like, you know, probably coming out of your mouth and ears, right? But people do that. They do that. They put their bodies under stress because they know if they overload their bodies, right, the body will respond, will become stronger, will become healthier. And I ask you, how do you think your spirit is going to be healthier and stronger? Not by coming here on Sundays and listening to me talking. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It would be wonderful if that would be the only thing that we needed to do. Mm-hmm. This is just like, take this little caffeine pill and now go, right? Mm-hmm. It gives you a little boost so you can live here and do the work. But God has provided us with a perfect family. So I want you to leave here, and no matter how difficult your family is, your homework for the upcoming week is to develop and to nourish this feeling of gratitude. At whatever level you can go. Gratitude because God has given me the perfect family. One that brings to me back spirits who perhaps I have injured in the past. And now I'm giving a chance to do something different and something better for them. Even if it's just to be patient, even if it's just to be there quietly. Because before I hurt them actively, so now I can take the punch and let it go. That is an improvement. If you can be in a family that's hostile to you sometimes without being hostile back, you are growing. The kingdom of heaven is happening. And there is nothing. Another day I was walking in Miami Shores and I was in touch with this feeling of peace of mind. Peace of mind, which does not mean lack of trouble, challenges, or difficulties. It just means that feeling that you walk in and you say, you know, I'm doing the best that I can, and I feel so good with my own efforts. Believe me, I don't have those a whole lot. But there is another time where you experience that, and then you say to yourself, I want to experience that more and more. And so all these sacrifices, we become stronger. We say, you know, it's not that we want to have, nobody's going to seek difficulties and troubles. Believe me. God will shape them according to your ability to handle them. No one needs to look for challenges and difficulties. They come to you, the right package, right address, right amount, handle them. Handle them. And so, the gospel at home is a powerful, like I said in the beginning, little practice that we can do. If your family does not join you, you have a spiritual family, do with them, but do it. It helps us. Again, we need to be, those concepts, although very beautiful, they are very foreigners to us many times. So part of it is strengthening our minds, strengthening our faith, and this is one way of doing it. So these slides are actually from the United States Spiritual Federation. There's a whole presentation, and I just took a few pictures. I also modified them a little bit for the purpose of this, but the entire material original is in the website of the United States Spiritual Federation. So a family doing the gospel at home together, and the spirits there present, participating with them. Some of the guidelines for this work, like I said, it needs to be on the same day, right? At the same time, so that the spirits can join you. You can always put a little bit of water, the water, the fluidified water that we drink here, the energized water. Put on a table a little jar, and the spirits will fluidify the water for you, will magnetize the water for you. Begin with a short, spontaneous prayer. Remember that when you pray, your sentiment, your feelings are the most important thing. Ask for protection. Call for the presence of the good spirits to be there with you. Then read a passage from the gospel or a passage from any uplifting book. This is an awesome book for this because, like I said, the stories are very short, they're easy. So it's for children of all ages, from 40, 50, 20, 10, all children. It's a great book. I recommend for your daily readings. Discuss the passage. Try to talk about the passages thinking of yourself and not of others. The work is for you. So you're not there thinking, oh yeah, this would be good if my brother would do that, if my mother would do that. No, what can you do better based on the passage that you are reading and studying? And it doesn't need to be long. It can be 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It depends on how many people are participating. You don't want to make it a 1 hour meeting necessarily. It's supposed to be like a short. With my children, they are 9 and 10. You know, if we can do 15 minutes of them focusing, that's great. So we just try to get the most out of them during that time. And then you do your prayer, you drink the water, and again, if you live alone, you also encourage to do that. We recommend that you read and comment in loud voice. Why? Just for the sake of keeping your thoughts, right? It's difficult for some of us. If you're really good at thinking silent and keeping a continuous thought that's coherent, go ahead and do that. The spirits will hear your thoughts. But for some people, they start thinking about something, and then the next second they're thinking about something else, and you get disconnected. You lose the flow. So speak out loud. Believe me, you are not alone, which reminds me of another little story from Chico Xavier, that when he opened his group, after some time, it was 5 members, they all had to go for different reasons. And so he was questioning whether he should continue with the meetings or not. And Emmanuel told him, yes, you will continue every day at 8 o'clock. You will do the meeting by yourself, talk out loud. And he did that for 2 years. For 2 years. He did a meeting by himself, opening every time at 8 o'clock. And then after a few meetings, he started seeing all the spirits who were there with him. And then he also started talking to the spirits during the meetings. They would ask questions and he would answer. But the point is there, you're not alone. You're not alone. The spirits will be there with you. All right. So we have 3 of these little books for sale here if anyone wants to take it. And if you need another book and would like to know more, I can also help you in choosing some books if you want to take home. Okay? So that was a little reflection for this morning. You guys have any thoughts or questions?
The book is from a spirit?
The book is from the spirit called Neo Lucio, through the psychography of Chico Xavier.